The game had just begun, and the opening move was not what he imagined. It was merely a reset, a new beginning for me, and the start of his end. The words still echo in my mind, even now, months later, as clear and cutting as they were on that day. Silas, your methods are antiquated. Your experience, while vast, is a relic. We're moving forward, into a new era of disruption, and frankly, you're just not compatible with that vision. Effective immediately, your services are no longer required. Dax Kael, barely half my age, stood before the entire executive team, a triumphant smirk plastered across his face, like a Cheshire cat who just swallowed the canary, and the entire flock. He just delivered the most devastating news of my 14-year career at Viridian Solutions with the casual indifference of someone swatting a fly. The silence in the room wasn't just quiet, it was a physical weight, pressing down, punctuated only by the steady, almost defiant, rhythm of my own breathing. Every eye was on me, expecting a spectacle, anger, despair, perhaps even a desperate, undignified plea. But I offered none of those. My gaze met Dax's, holding it, and I simply nodded. A slow, deliberate nod that, I believe, wiped the smugness from his expression for a fleeting moment, a flicker of uncertainty in his otherwise unwavering triumph. He'd declared victory, publicly asserting his dominance, staking his claim, but he hadn't seen the quiet glint in my eye, the calm, unshakable assurance that had settled deep within me years ago, preparing for this very moment. He was celebrating an opening, I was merely observing a chess piece move, a precise, predictable progression. For years, I had prepared for an eventuality like this, not out of paranoia, but from a profound, foundational understanding of how the corporate world, and indeed, life itself, truly operates. What Dax called outdated, I called foundational. What he dismissed as relics, I knew to be leverage. And in that precise moment, as he gloated, basking in his perceived triumph, I knew with absolute certainty that he had no idea what was truly about to unfold. The game had just begun, and the opening move was not what he imagined, it was merely a reset, a new beginning for me, and the start of his end. To truly understand that moment, that specific, pivotal nod, you need to know how I got there, how Silas Thorne, a man who had dedicated nearly 2 decades to building, nurturing, and fiercely protecting Viridian Solutions, found himself discarded like an obsolete piece of hardware. My journey with Viridian began when it was a mere fledgling startup, a brilliant, ambitious vision operating out of a cramped office space that smelled faintly of stale coffee and boundless ambition. I joined as a junior operations manager, a role that quickly evolved into a passion, and over the years, I climbed the ranks, pouring my lifeblood into every project, every late night spent troubleshooting, every crisis averted with quick thinking and deep knowledge. I didn't just know the company's circulatory system, I had helped design it, understood its intricate web of vendors, its delicate distribution network stretching across continents, its meticulously cultivated client relationships, the intricate, ever-changing dance of global supply chain logistics. I'd weathered multiple economic downturns, navigated tectonic technological shifts, and consistently delivered results that not only ensured Viridian's growth but also its unwavering stability. My colleagues often joked I had an encyclopedic memory for Viridian's history and its operational quirks. But it wasn't just memory, it was a deeply ingrained understanding, an intuitive grasp, a quiet wisdom forged in the fires of countless experiences, of problems solved and crises averted. I wasn't flashy, I was reliable. I wasn't disruptive, I was efficient. I was the bedrock, the quiet engine that kept everything running. Then Dax Kael arrived. Young, brash, a self-proclaimed disruptor, who'd made a name for himself in the volatile, hype-driven world of tech startups. He saw Viridian, a solid, established company built on decades of hard work and trust, not as a monument to be respected and evolved, but as a dusty old mansion to be gutted, stripped bare, and aggressively rebranded. From day one, his disdain for my meticulous, proven methods was palpable, a thinly veiled contempt that permeated every meeting. He called my meticulous planning slow, my caution risk-averse, and my deep-rooted, trust-based relationships with partners old boys clubs, as if loyalty and experience were liabilities. He openly mocked my traditional approach in meetings, advocating for reckless pivots into untested territories and the adoption of unproven, cutting-edge technologies that promised much but delivered little. I tried to bridge the gap, to explain the critical interdependencies within our global operations, the long-term, catastrophic implications of his radical proposals. I spoke of hidden costs, of supply chain fragility, of client trust that once broken, could never truly be mended. But he saw only resistance, not reasoned caution. He saw a man blocking his glorious digital revolution, a dinosaur standing in the path of progress. This constant friction, this almost deliberate misunderstanding of my intrinsic value, made me realize something profoundly important. My years of experience, my vast network built on trust and mutual respect, my deep understanding of the industry's hidden arteries, these were not just assets for Viridian. They were my ultimate, secret weapon, my personal contingency plan. I began, quietly and methodically, to fortify my external connections, not just maintaining them, but actively expanding and deepening them. I regularly met with industry veterans, not just clients or vendors, but also key players in major competitor firms and influential figures within regulatory bodies. I cultivated these relationships with care, shared unbiased insights, and offered genuine advice, always maintaining my professional integrity and discretion. I became an unofficial oracle for many, a source of reliable, unvarnished truth in a world increasingly saturated with hype and fleeting trends. I also, crucially, diversified my knowledge base far beyond the confines of Viridian's immediate needs. I spent countless evenings studying emerging markets, not just in my sector, but in tangential industries that might subtly impact our supply chains or customer behavior. I explored new operational models, not to jump on every passing fad, but to truly understand their underlying mechanics, their true potential, and their inherent pitfalls. This wasn't about finding a new job out of desperation, it was about ensuring my own intellectual agility, making sure that even if one door abruptly closed, I had the keys to a dozen others, ready to unlock new opportunities. I wasn't preparing for a fall, I was preparing for a pivot. When Dax finally pulled the trigger, firing me so publicly and humiliatingly, it wasn't a surprise. It was an inevitable, almost predicted, outcome of his aggressive, ego-driven agenda. And because I had prepared, truly prepared, I wasn't falling down, I was simply stepping onto a different, carefully chosen path. The day after my very public, very deliberate dismissal, the office was a hive of whispers. Emails from former colleagues trickled in, expressing shock, regret, veiled anger at Dax's audacity and the sheer injustice of it all. I responded to each with a calm, assured tone, reiterating that I bore no ill will and genuinely wished Viridian well. I needed no drama, no public lament, no outpouring of sympathy. My silence, I found, was a far more potent statement than any outburst, a quiet dignity that spoke volumes. Dax, predictably, misinterpreted this silence entirely. He saw my quiet departure as confirmation of my insignificance, a sign that I was indeed outdated, and lacked the fight, the drive, to challenge his visionary leadership. His arrogance swelled, visibly inflating, and he doubled down on his aggressive, ill-conceived strategies, convinced he was unfettered, finally. While Dax was busy dismantling what I had spent years building, painstakingly constructing, I was quietly activating my carefully nurtured network. My phone, once filled with internal corporate reports, became a conduit to a world of burgeoning opportunity. The call that truly mattered, the one that confirmed my strategic path, came from Arthur Caldwell, the venerable CEO of Apex Logistics, Viridian's largest and most crucial shipping and distribution partner. Arthur and I had built a relationship based on mutual respect and unwavering trust over more than a decade, a bond forged in the crucible of countless logistical challenges overcome together. He knew, intimately, the intricate dance of Viridian's global supply chain, because, quite simply, I had designed much of it in close, collaborative partnership with his dedicated team. Silas, Arthur's voice was gravely, carrying the weight of genuine concern. I heard what happened. An absolute travesty. Viridian is making a grave, irreversible mistake. A company dismantles its own foundations at its peril. Arthur, I replied, my voice steady, betraying no emotion, perhaps. But one man's mistake can indeed be another's opportunity. I'm exploring new avenues, paths less trodden but potentially more fruitful. He didn't hesitate, not for a moment. His response was immediate, decisive. Silas, I've been looking for someone to head our new strategic partnerships division for months. Someone with an unparalleled understanding of complex global supply chains, deep industry connections that span continents, and the foresight to anticipate risks before they even materialize. Someone, frankly, who knows the logistics landscape better than almost anyone I've met, someone with true institutional knowledge, not just theoretical models. I need a mind like yours to not just manage our current client relationships, but to identify and secure our next decade of explosive growth. Would you be willing to consider joining Apex? The role would be yours to shape. The offer was more than just a job, it was a strategic placement, a perfectly orchestrated countermove. Apex was, by all accounts, Viridian's lifeblood, the invisible hand that ensured their products actually reached their markets, that their promises to customers were kept. If I worked for Apex, I wouldn't be a competitor in the traditional sense, but a powerful leverage point, an indispensable resource for Viridian's single most critical partner. It was the perfect countermove, an elegant repositioning on the chessboard, turning their supposed victory into my undeniable advantage. I accepted, of course, after careful, deliberate consideration, outlining the terms that would allow me maximum strategic influence. My new role at Apex was, in a word, exhilarating. I wasn't just overseeing operations, I was shaping the very future of global logistics. I used my outdated knowledge, now suddenly cutting edge again, to streamline Apex's internal processes, making them even more efficient, robust, and resilient than ever before. I leveraged my vast, meticulously cultivated network to bring in a slew of new, high-value clients, further cementing Apex's market dominance and expanding its global reach. As Apex thrived under my strategic guidance, growing bolder and stronger with each passing quarter, Viridian, under Dax, began its predictable, slow-motion falter. His disruptive innovations were causing unmitigated chaos, monumental supply chain bottlenecks due to untested algorithms replacing established, human-managed protocols, client defections at an alarming rate due to unfulfilled promises and chronic delays, and a rapidly eroding reputation for reliability, once Viridian's hallmark. Dax was burning through capital at an alarming rate, alienating long-standing partners, and neglecting the very operational foundation that had made Viridian successful for decades. With each news report detailing Viridian's struggles, with each whispered concern for mutual contacts, I maintained my composure, my serene focus. I never gloated, never spoke ill of Dax or Viridian publicly, not a single word. I simply focused on my work, allowing my actions, and the unfolding, undeniable reality around Dax, to speak for themselves. The pieces were moving, silently but inevitably, into their final, predetermined positions. The crisis at Viridian escalated rapidly, like a fever breaking. Production lines were stalling, distribution channels were seizing up entirely, and their largest retailers, once loyal, were now threatening to pull multi-million-dollar contracts. Rumors abounded about a potential hostile acquisition, or worse, outright collapse. Dax, who had once prided himself on his aggressive transparency and bold pronouncements, became increasingly reclusive, his public statements vague, evasive, and increasingly desperate. The industry, once dazzled by his bravado and the shiny veneer of his vision, now watched with a grim mix of schadenfreude and genuine concern for a once great company. The climax arrived not in a dramatic boardroom confrontation, but in a desperate, almost pathetic series of urgent texts. My phone buzzed incessantly over the course of a single afternoon, each message growing more frantic, more pleading, than the last. They began innocently enough: "Silas, saw you're at Apex now. Good for you. Quite a move." Then, quickly, the tone shifted, the desperation creeping in, "Hearing some things on the street about Viridian's logistics. You still understand how that system works? We're having some challenges." Followed by a more direct admission of failure: "Look, we're having some major issues. Our new AI supply chain manager is having some serious bugs. Major delays. Customers are furious." And finally, the desperate, unvarnished plea, shattering any remaining facade of his arrogance: "Silas, we need immediate help. Our entire Q4 revenue is at risk. We can't fulfill orders, not a single one. Our biggest clients are furious, they're threatening lawsuits. Can you help us fix this? Please. I need your insights. What's wrong with the system? I'll pay whatever it takes. Just tell me what to do." I stared at the messages, the screen illuminating my face in the dim light of my office, a faint, almost imperceptible smile touching my lips. This was it. The moment I had anticipated, the moment his modernization hit the unyielding, unforgiving wall of reality. I didn't reply immediately. I let him stew, letting the full, crushing weight of his own monumental miscalculations press down on him, letting the desperation fully bloom. I was no longer the discarded, outdated employee. I was the potential savior, holding the precise keys to his company's very survival, to his entire professional future. The power dynamic had irrevocably, utterly shifted. Later that week, I was invited to a highly exclusive, closed-door emergency meeting between the remaining Viridian board members and Arthur Caldwell, representing Apex Logistics. Dax was there, looking pale and gaunt, visibly shrunken, his once swaggering arrogance utterly replaced by a naked, trembling desperation. The board members were agitated, their faces etched with a profound worry that bordered on panic. Arthur, ever the astute businessman, ever the diplomat, opened the meeting, subtly, expertly setting the stage. "Gentlemen," Arthur began, his voice calm but firm, "Apex is deeply concerned about Viridian's current operational difficulties. Our continued partnership is vital, indeed essential to both our businesses, but we simply cannot afford to absorb the fallout from these persistent, escalating logistical failures. We need a definitive solution, and we need it now, or we will have no choice but to activate our contingency clauses. Simply put, we cannot continue to be your primary distribution partner if you cannot even get your products out of your own warehouses, much less into the hands of your customers." Dax, fidgeting nervously in his seat, stammered, his voice weak, We're working on it. Our new systems are still being optimized. It's just a temporary blip. A minor adjustment period." It was then that Arthur looked directly at me, a subtle, almost imperceptible nod between us. "Silas, given your intimate, historical knowledge of Viridian's operational architecture, and your current role at Apex overseeing strategic partnerships, perhaps you could shed some light on the blips you've observed, and what it would truly take for Apex to confidently continue our essential relationship." All eyes, heavy with expectation, turned to me. Dax's face, already ashen, drained further as he realized, with dawning horror, what was happening. This wasn't just a meeting, it was an intervention, a public reckoning, and I was the designated surgeon, holding the scalpel. I calmly, methodically, laid out the unvarnished truth, each word a precise cut. The blips, Dax, are not temporary bugs. They are fundamental, systemic flaws rooted in a core system that was replaced without any true understanding of its intricate dependencies. You decoupled the inventory management from the real-time shipping analytics, underestimating the dynamic, unpredictable nature of global freight. You then outsourced the last-mile delivery tracking to an unproven, untested AI, effectively blinding yourselves to critical, ground-level delays and bottlenecks. What you called optimization was, in fact, a deliberate, reckless dismantling of a finely tuned, resilient network that had served this company for decades. It wasn't outdated, it was robust, it was proven, it was the very backbone of your success. Every single decision you made to modernize has, ironically, pushed Veridian back decades in operational efficiency, shattering its reliability. I then pulled out a meticulously prepared report, carefully compiled during my time at Apex, using my deep historical insights and Apex's real-time global data. It was complete with detailed flowcharts, damning data points, and undeniable metrics validating every single one of my claims. To rectify this, gentlemen, Veridian would need to undo much of what has been so hastily implemented, reinstating proven, resilient protocols, and crucially, leveraging real-world, human expertise to bridge the immense gaps your new systems have created. And frankly, gentlemen, as partners, Apex cannot risk our own sterling reputation and vast resources supporting a system designed for collapse, a system that actively undermines its own foundational purpose. Our continued partnership, I paused, letting the full, crushing weight of my words hang in the silent air, letting them sink in, would only be viable if Veridian completely overhauls its operational leadership and strategy, bringing in someone who truly understands the delicate balance of this industry. Someone who respects the foundations, even as they thoughtfully look to the future, someone who knows that true innovation builds, not destroys. The boardroom fell into a stunned silence. Dax's face was a mask of utter, complete defeat. The secret was finally out. The outdated man was now the only one with the answers, the only one who could save them. The aftermath of that meeting was swift and brutal for Dax Kael. The board, now fully aware of the true extent of his reckless mismanagement and my unique position to both identify and, crucially, rectify the catastrophic damage, wasted no time. Publicly, the company announced a strategic realignment of leadership to address unforeseen operational challenges, a euphemism for disaster. Privately, Dax was out, quietly ushered away with a minimal severance, a stark contrast to his bombastic arrival. His fall from grace was as rapid and spectacular as his meteoric rise. He, the self-proclaimed visionary who had promised Veridian a glittering future of disruption, had only succeeded in disrupting it into near bankruptcy, leaving a trail of chaos in his wake. The shockwaves reverberated through the entire industry. Dax, once the darling of tech journals, lauded as the new face of innovation, became an instant cautionary tale, an example whispered in hushed tones of what happens when ego supplants experience. His disruptive peers, who had applauded his initial, bold moves, now hastily distanced themselves, wary of being associated with such a spectacular and public failure. The employees at Veridian, many of whom had quietly resented Dax's arrogance and his blatant disregard for their decades of experience and dedication, felt a profound mixture of relief and powerful vindication. There were whispers of, "I told you so," but mostly, a quiet, desperate hope that the company they had dedicated their lives to might still be saved from the brink. My phone, once filled with Dax's increasingly desperate texts, now buzzed incessantly with calls from other prominent companies, all seeking my advice, my strategic insights, my unique blend of foresight and foundational knowledge. They saw what had happened at Veridian and realized, with dawning clarity, that true innovation wasn't about blindly discarding the past, but about understanding its inherent strengths and painstakingly building upon them with wisdom. My outdated label had transformed, almost overnight, into a badge of honor, a testament to enduring wisdom and profound insight. Arthur Caldwell, ever the astute businessman, became my loudest, most influential advocate. He ensured that Apex's continued, crucial partnership with the restructured Viridian was explicitly contingent upon my ongoing strategic oversight, effectively making me an omnipresent, albeit external, authority on their operational recovery, their guiding hand. I wasn't just a consultant, I was their lifeline, their compass in a storm of their own making. The regret on the faces of some board members, the quiet, almost shame-faced apologies from others who had so readily bought into Dax's empty hype, were palpable, a silent acknowledgement of their grave error. They had dismissed me, seen me as obsolete, irrelevant, and now, ironically, they needed my relic knowledge to survive, to simply exist. It wasn't about vengeance for me, it was about the natural, undeniable consequences of a profound disregard for genuine expertise. Months have passed since that pivotal meeting, since the pieces clicked into their final, satisfying positions. Viridian Solutions is slowly, painstakingly, rebuilding itself from the ashes of Dax's disruption. Under new, more stable, and crucially, more humble leadership, and with my ongoing strategic guidance from Apex, they are gradually, methodically undoing the profound damage Dax so recklessly inflicted. Their complex supply chains are once again flowing smoothly, their impatient clients are cautiously returning, and the trust in their brand, so severely eroded, is being painstakingly restored, brick by painstaking brick. I see the company not as a rival, not as a monument to my vindication, but as a living, breathing testament to the enduring, unassailable power of foundational knowledge and the wisdom of experience. As for me, life has never been more fulfilling, more balanced. My role at Apex has expanded significantly. I'm not just heading a division, I'm a key advisor to the CEO, shaping the company's long-term strategy for global logistics, influencing decisions that impact industries worldwide. I travel less, enjoying more precious time with my family, and I spend my days engaged in complex, stimulating challenges that truly leverage my decades of accumulated wisdom, my quiet strength. I am comfortable, deeply respected, and most importantly, at peace with the journey that led me here. Dax. I heard he's attempting another startup, something in the blockchain space, something shiny and new. I truly wish him well, but I suspect he'll learn the same painful lessons again, perhaps in a different, equally unforgiving crucible. This whole experience taught me a profound, undeniable truth, one worth sharing with anyone who will listen. In a world utterly obsessed with constant newness and disruptive innovation, it's remarkably easy to dismiss what is tried and true, to discard invaluable experience in favor of fleeting trends and unproven theories. But true progress is rarely about tearing down everything that came before. It's about building upon solid, proven foundations, understanding the intricate, delicate layers of what works, and then, and only then, thoughtfully, intelligently integrating new ideas to enhance, not destroy. Your greatest asset isn't always the latest buzzword or the flashiest, most expensive technology, it's often the quiet wisdom accumulated over years, the deep, trust-based networks you've painstakingly cultivated, and the fundamental, intuitive understanding of how things genuinely operate, how the world truly turns. Don't let anyone tell you your experience is outdated simply because it isn't shiny and new, simply because it doesn't fit their current narrative. Sometimes, what seems old is simply timeless, profound in its simplicity, and when the chaos of the new inevitably collapses under its own weight, it's the enduring wisdom of the bold that will be called upon to step forward and rebuild. Invest in yourself, cultivate your knowledge with diligence and patience, and remember that true, lasting value often lies in the depth, not just the fleeting surface. When the time is right, your quiet strength will not just speak volumes, it will command the very direction of the game.